Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the Guy series. Hi, I'm Justin, the Guy. This is part of the top 20 checklist when you're buying a used bike. Today we're going to go over number 9, which is headsets. Headsets. Is it the headset of the rider or the headset? What is a headset? Headset is the front end of the bike where the actual fork goes through the head tube, which hence the reason headset, and goes up to the stem. And this is where it holds your handlebars. So very vital. It's not a very spinny mechanical piece per se, but it does have its purpose. And obviously it's very important because it's controlling how you steer. So there's a lot of different things that can go wrong with a headset that need to be inspected when you're purchasing a used bike or any bike at all. You want to make sure it's adjusted correctly. Adjustments on the headset is similar to a hub, but think of a hub as instead of a lateral plane as a vertical plane. And it's not constantly rotating like a hub does, or a crankset or a bottom bracket, that kind of thing. It's more in a fixed position, and you have about anywhere between a 30 to 90 degree turn radius on it. So that's something you want to consider there. So let's dive into it. Well, how do I inspect a headset, you're going to ask? Like, well, how do I check? Well, there's a couple things right off the bat. It's easy to remember and do even without a bike stand. So we're going to pop this off the bike stand, and we're going to do a downward zoom. So you're looking at this bike and like, oh, this is a nice bike. I want to check it out, but I just want to check it out real quick. Well, first, you can just lift up the bike without using the stand or needing a stand. And you want it to feel smooth, no notching. The reason being there's notching is the headset might be compressed too tight, and those bearings are kind of pitting, what they call pitting, into the races where the bearings roll on. We'll go over that in a minute with detailed parts, but here we're looking at is like, is it smooth? Is it stiff? Is it notch? And that notching is basically you just spin it back and forth like this. And if it's indexing, then you have a problem. There is a problem. And the second thing is pretty simple. You just hit your front brake, so it locks up the front wheel, and you're pushing the bike back and forth. When you push it back and forth, you shouldn't feel or hear any knocking. If it's loose, it's going to go knock, 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 knock. Then you just put your fingers on both the race and the crown cap, or you can go underneath where the fork meets the fork. And if you feel any looseness, if it's sliding back and forth, that means the headset's not adjusted correctly. Does it mean it's damaged? No, it just means it's not adjusted. And sometimes that happens when people don't understand the concept of adjusting a headset, or when they switch out the stem, they're messing with the headset adjustment, and they got to make sure that adjustment is set in place. So those are the two things. Recap, spin, and see if there's knocking going back and forth. Another one, lastly, the third little one is kind of just tapping it on the ground. If it feels solid, that's good. If you feel like a rattle in there, that's another reason it might be loose. So that's the ground test. Let's dive into the headset and see what we're looking at here. So there's several types of headsets out there over the course of the years. And a little bit of history lesson. Back in the day, it was basically loose ball bearings running up against a crown on a cone surface, or a cup on a crown surface, and then you adjust it by a threaded fork, compressing those bearings or loosening them so what your optimum is being as loose as possible, smooth as possible without being loose. And that prevent those ball bearings move back and across of the surface area. What am I talking about? Okay, the headset basically comprises of the bottom portion here, which goes through the fork, the bottom of the head tube, and the top of the head tube. That's where you usually call the cups, which hold the bearings. Then you have a race on top where the bearings roll up against these spacers, which compress that bearing down, and this is your adjuster cap on top, spacers cap there. Okay, so we're breaking it down in parts. This particular headset is called a headset. It was kind of coined back in the 90s, and that's when they came out and they got rid of the threaded because they were using quill stems, which is a stem that goes inside Long story, these are a lot better. Or they just an improvement. So what we have here, these are what they call cups, and you see the lettering, so that means this one's going to be downwards, this one's going to go up top and compress into that head tube like so. To use a particular tool to put those in is this guy here or something similar to. What that does is equally pressures the cups and kind of wedges them into the head tube as a metal-to-metal contact press. Once those are set in there, you got to make sure the fork has its own crown, which this one doesn't look like it has, but it's similar to this. Actually, that might be it. That goes over the fork, this portion here, that goes up against the bearings. They went to cartridge bearings, and they still do the current day, which is better because it distributes the pressure more evenly. And since it is more of a fixed position when you're riding, it doesn't move that much back and forth. Like a hub is constantly spinning, so it's equally distributing that pressure. A headset is just, it's more targeted. So that's where the wear point can be if they hit a lot of, chalky, bumpy roads or hit something really hard. It can put that pressure, forward and aft when they hit those things they go in that direction. So these are the bearings here. So they made it easy, today's standards, to replace these guys. You just make sure you get the right size. You just throw them in there with a little bit of grease. You're good to go. They fit right into the cups quite easily, like so. And you want to put a little grease in there and a little bit cleaner. These are just a dirty set that was pulled off a bike, but similar to that. So it's easier to switch out, maybe a little more costly, but easier, and they actually last longer. End of the day, performance factor and longevity of the part, which is awesome. Nobody wants to be dinking around with their headset because they're not fun. They're not appealing. There is a couple headset systems out there that are high end. Chris King is known for this. Beautiful headset. They use a very similar a bearing system like this, but a little bit higher grade. They have a whole bunch of tech, geeky out. You can really go crazy. What does it do? It just told you. It's a status thing, really. So going back in time, the old headsets had what they call ball bearings, or the cage bearings, if I can get this guy to pop out. Basically, those bearings fit in a cage. Let's see if we get this poker to pop it out. Oh, these are set in there. So in this case, this particular headset, you'd have to replace the cup, or no, you'd have to, there's a washer, never mind. It's holding it. So that's a gooey mess. So yeah, mechanics really didn't love these in the beginning. The reason being is when you had to replace this would come out, fall on the ground. Half these little ball bearings would pop out, and you'd be like scrambling around the floor. And if your floor wasn't clean, oh my goodness, you're like digging through little bits of cable and zip ties or whatever. So yeah, and this one's a sticky mess because there's some old grease that's still in there. So yeah. These are what the old bearings used to be like. This was a threaded, so this would thread down. And what would happen over a period of time on these race, where the bearings rolled up against, would have little shiny indentations. That's where the ball bearings were just kind of smashing into the steel. So this is a better way to go. Even though you don't see that happening and it's more distributed, that's what these guys do. So those ball bearings are not directly on that hard steel surface and pitting it. And that's where you get that indexing of turning the handlebars, that kind of thing. So yeah, those are the things that make up the headset. To take the cups out, you'd have to use a cup remover tool like this. You brutally smash it out with a hammer, kind of like go on the inside, it pops out and catches the lip of the cup, and you pop it out. Then you get the new one, and you put the cups in the tool, bottom and top. Then you can press it down and tighten it down and press it and sets it in there. Okay, This is just a cheaper version, but the nice shop industrial ones that they use daily, it's going to cost you a couple $100. So don't. It's worth paying the bike shop to press the headset cups in there for you if you want to do that or install it completely. So that's the headset. Here's a couple things. We're going to tear this one apart so you can get a view of what it looks like and what I'm going to talk about as an adjustment and so forth. So this is your stem here, right? And this is the adjuster cup, or not cup, but adjuster cap. Oh, words twisted. So I need to loosen these two bolts out because this holds it in place to the compression. So when you loosen the stem up, that releases the tension on the stem so it doesn't hold it in place anymore. So the pressure is all relying on this adjuster cap. So this cap, you can tighten it or loosen it. And when you tighten it, it compresses it down. If you loosen it, it opens everything up a little bit. So here's the tricky bit. When you loosen this up to switch out your stem, saying you want to put on a new stem, you have now compromised that adjustment up and down. Oh, this is a carbon stem, steer tube. Okay, this is the steer tube of the actual fork itself that goes through the frame. These are typically aluminum, but the higher end ones are carbon. They have a special little wedge in it to hold in place. So this is, it comes with a nice little fork. So this is the spacers here. And this is where the other tricky bit is when people switch out a stem, they don't make sure this top bolt is down below the lip here when it sits. If you switch out the stem and it's higher up, you need to start switching these guys out so you get that second bolt to clamp on here. Reason being, if this is sitting up here, you're only holding it by one bolt, not two, and then you're not having enough surface area for contact here for safety. And if you hit something really big hard and this gives, boom, you don't have any handlebars anymore. Guess what? You're in the yard not knowing what the hell that happened because you're going probably fast. And if you ever had any handlebars go out on you while you're riding, it is the scariest thing. Because that's the three contact points, right? Your saddle, that shifts down. Okay, that's weird, but you can hold any handlebars. If your feet falls out, like your crank arm falls off or something, that's kind of scary, but you're still sitting in the saddle. But if your handlebars go, that's where the majority of your weight is when you're riding. Woo! Down you go. So, case in point, make sure this is safe. So when you take these guys off, those are your spacers. This is that top race I was talking about. That compresses that bearing. And this is that where the bearing race rolls on. And the bearing itself just popped right out there. And that's the cup there. And the cables will hold this in place. Yeah. So, and if you want to take these apart and inspect them, sure, you can take them apart, wipe off all the old grease, and you're trying to see if it's smooth, that kind of thing. And same thing for the bottom. And the bottom will have more potential of contaminants because that's where all those splash is coming from riding and so forth. And I like to put a little bit of grease in these guys so they don't get seized in there, especially if you get in the contaminated areas where it's really salty, salt air, what have you. Or if you, this is your indoor trainer bike and you're not really using it outside that much, that's fine, but you want to protect those parts. Put a lot of grease in there because when you sweat drops right down into the head tube, seizes all up. Your sweat is highly concentrated with salt. Then I have another video showing how horrible of a mess that becomes sometimes. So put that cap on there, and if you switched out your stem, you make sure that bolt is flat, it goes underneath that lip. You adjust it. When you're adjusting it, you want it smooth, but you don't want it to be knocking. So you're looking for that sweet spot. And once you find that sweet spot, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up your stem, which locks it in place. Then you just leave this, you don't adjust it anymore. Once it's adjusted, you just leave it in place. The pressure itself will keep it in position. And there you go. Quick-a-dink of a headset. That's what a headset is. From your head tube, hooks up to the fork with a steer tube, and the stem. Those are all your little parts. If you like videos like this, going into detail on bikes and other things about shop related, I hang out in a garage and I do this all day, refurbishing road bikes. So I like to take a hot minute here to show a couple things that I come across and be a little informational there, trying to contribute to the cycling community and knowledge. So anyway, if you like these videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel or go to my Facebook page, like me there as well. Or you can go to my website, anoaguybicycles.com, and put your email down on the newsletter list. So thanks again for hanging out with me. Until next time, from the garage, take care.